Hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Ashley you again. I hope you all have had a great new year so far and are looking forward to what this new year brings in store for yourself. I'm back with my Champions League preview, given the competition returns this week with the last 16 first legs. Not all of them will take place as the games are split across 2 weeks, with 4 ties being played this week and then the next week. I'll also preview the Europa League round of 32 first legs that will take place this week as well. So I hope you once again enjoy this video and look forward to seeing what my predictions are. So first up we have on Tuesday night RB Leipzig face Liverpool in the last 16 of the Champions League. This tie is actually being played in Hungary given the COVID restrictions between travel from the UK to Germany, so that's why this tie has been moved to neighbouring Hungary instead. I don't know who will be favourites in this tie, given that even though Leipzig are second in the Bundesliga, Liverpool haven't been great in the past few weeks. They've lost 4 of their last 6 games. They seem to be slipping away from the top 4 as well as title contention, so you just wonder what Liverpool will turn up in this game, given it's the Champions League and that's normally where they raise their game. But Leipzig will feel they really need to win this first leg if they're to have any chance of getting through in this tie, given the return leg is at Anfield. But I think they'll be quietly confident about getting the job done in this tie and giving themselves a platform on which to build for the second leg, particularly given Liverpool's defensive deficiencies. They conceded 3 against Leicester City at the weekend after being so dominant, and 4 against Manchester City last week after what was a nightmare from their goalkeeper Alisson. So Leipzig will be hoping to expose Liverpool's defensive vulnerabilities, but they also need to watch out at the other end as well, given that Liverpool still have the front 3 up top with Firmino, Salah and Mane, even though Salah is the only one who looks like getting the goals for the Reds. So maybe it might not be as difficult as they might think, but Leipzig still need to take Liverpool seriously, given they're still a good team. They may have fallen off the pace in the Premier League, but on their day they can be very dangerous. So they have to take caution, but I think Leipzig will actually get the job done in the first leg. Might not be as big as an advantage as they want, but I think they'll get the win in this first leg, given Liverpool's defensive deficiencies. And I'm actually going for I wouldn't say it's like a thrilling game, but more of a tight match, to be honest, given I think Liverpool will just be happy just to get out of the first leg with a narrow defeat or 2, just to give themselves a chance for that second leg at Anfield. So I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 Leipzig win, given that Leipzig always scored 2 goals at home in the Champions League. They did score 3 against Manchester United, but United were very poor defensively that night. So I'm actually going to go for a Leipzig 2-1 win, actually, because I feel that Liverpool will have enough to score an away goal, which might give them a bit of a platform foothold in this tie heading into the return leg at Anfield. So for me, my prediction for this first leg will be Leipzig 2, Liverpool 1. And then the other tie taking place on Tuesday night is the clash between Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain. Both teams aren't doing actually great domestically, even though Barcelona have picked up form in recent weeks. They've won their last 7 in the league, but they're still quite way behind leaders Atletico Madrid in La Liga, and you feel that if they won't have any chance of winning the La Liga title once again, they need to continue winning. But in the Champions League, they did okay in the group stages, winning 5 of their 6 games, but capitulated at home against Juventus to end up with this tie with Paris Saint-Germain, who have struggled since Pochettino took over as manager at the start of the year following the sacking of Thomas Tuchel before Christmas, given they were not performing well. Domestically, they were third, actually, I remember, in the table, so they're not exactly firing on all cylinders as well, Paris Saint-Germain, and the fact that Neymar will be out of this first leg might give Barcelona hope of getting some sort of advantage going into the second leg in Paris. So, and Barcelona actually have a psychological edge over Paris, given, as we all know, what happened when the two teams last met. That famous 6-1 victory at the Camp Nou at this stage of the competition a few years ago. Barcelona were 4-0 down after the first leg, but managed to turn the tie around to win 6-1 and go through. And that was a real scar for Paris Saint-Germain that still lives on today, actually, because it's something that nobody really thought would happen, but Paris Saint-Germain contrived to mess it up, and they'll be looking to get some sort of revenge in this tie. I actually think that PSG might still have enough to go through, but I also think that Barcelona will also have enough to get a victory in this first leg as well. So I'm going for a 2-1 Barcelona victory as well. And then moving on to Wednesday night's ties. First up we have Sevilla against Borussia Dortmund. Sevilla are flying high domestically and on a great run of form. They've won each of their past 5 in the league, whereas Dortmund are in a bit of trouble domestically in the Bundesliga. They sacked Lucien Favre after the Champions League group stage finished, after a 5-1 thrashing by Stuttgart in the Bundesliga, and their form hasn't really picked up as much as they would have liked since then under their interim coach Edin Terzic. So they're a bit under the cosh heading into this tie. Sevilla are in great form, as I said, and they'll be looking to capitalise on Dortmund's defensive deficiencies, which have plagued them for so many years in their hopes of beating Bayern Munich to the Bundesliga title and going deep into the Champions League. And you feel that the fact they keep conceding goals will give Sevilla a lot of hope that they can take a big advantage heading into the second leg at the Signal Iduna Park. So the onus is really on Sevilla to take the game to Dortmund and get themselves into a strong position to progress to the quarter-finals. And given Dortmund's deficiencies and the fact that they're struggling up top, even with Erling Braut Haaland up there, Jadon Sancho, he's been a shadow of himself from recent seasons. So I'm struggling to see where Dortmund will really score the goals to give themselves some bit of hope for the second legs. But Sevilla will still need to be careful, because Dortmund on their day can be a threat going forward. But I actually think that Sevilla might actually get themselves into give themselves a winning lead in this tie potentially. So I'm actually going to go for a Sevilla 3-1 win in this tie, in this first leg. And then in the other tie on Wednesday night, Porto host Juventus. Juventus will be the favourites heading into this tie, given they're the better team on paper. Porto have drawn their last 4 in the domestic league, which is not really great form heading into a tie with the reigning Italian champions, and who have still got Cristiano Ronaldo in their side. But Juventus aren't exactly flying in Serie A. They're 4th in their domestic league, having already lost 3 times. They lost to Napoli at the weekend, even though they dominated for large swathes of that game. But they still lost, and they're still finding their identity under Andrea Pirlo, who's in his first season as a manager. Even though they've been okay domestically, they've still not really shown the type of flair football that we've associated with Juventus teams in the past, and they're still a work in progress, if I'm being honest. But you'd still expect them to get the better of a Porto side who let's be honest, were handed a favourable group in Olympiacos and Marseille as their weakest opponents, and Manchester City as the ones who finished top. So they'll be hoping just to try and stay in this tie, or even eke out some sort of advantage like Lyon did last season when nobody expected them to get the better of the old lady, and they did. So they'll be hoping to take a leaf out of their notebook and maybe cause a shock in this tie. But you imagine Juve would have learned their lessons from last season, and I think they'll actually win this first leg in Portugal, but it won't be easy. Porto will make it difficult. They're actually very strong at home in Europe in recent seasons, so it won't be easy for Juve, but I actually still think they'll get the job done with Ronaldo up top, so it'll be a 2-1 victory for Juventus for me. So moving on to Thursday night, it's the first legs of the round of 32 ties, and 32 teams still aiming to realise their dream of reaching the final in, I think it's in Gdansk later this year, so it's going to be interesting to see who wins it, given the fact that some big names have actually dropped down from the Champions League, such as the likes of Manchester United. There's also an Ajax as well, so it'll be interesting to see who makes it all the way and wins the Europa League in 2021. But here we are, the round of 32 stage. We have 16 ties to get through. I'm not going to go into too much detail about each and every single one of them. So, but for the Premier League sides, I'll start off with Manchester United. They face Real Sociedad in their tie after dropping down from the Champions League from a tough group including Paris Saint-Germain and RB Leipzig. But they'll still be disappointed to be in Europa League, given they actually won their first 2 games in that Champions League group. So they'll be looking to make amends in this competition. Manchester United are currently in good form. Even though they've only won 2 of their last 7 in the league. Defensively, they still have issues, as we saw when they drew 3-3 with Everton in the Premier League recently after being 2-0 up at half-time, and in that surprise defeat to the bottom of the table, Sheffield United. So they're still a long way off getting back to where they want to be, which is being the best team in England. So still in work in progress, but they're second in the Premier League. They're doing okay, and I think they should actually get the better of Real Sociedad in this tie. Sociedad, when I previewed the draw actually back in December, they were top of their domestic league, but since then they've really fallen off the pace and down in 5th place, even though they have won their last 2. But you feel that with Manchester United's superior European pedigree and experience of winning this competition actually in 2017, that you think that Manchester United should be the favourites. Sociedad will try and make it as difficult as possible for United, and I'm actually going to go for a draw in this one, because United don't really have a great record in Spain. Can't really remember the last time they won in that country, so I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw, because I still think United will have enough to get an away goal or 2, which should provide the platform for them to make progress from this tie. And then another Premier League side, Tottenham. They've got Austrian side Wolfsburg, who are in the Europa League round of 32 for the first time. They're struggling domestically. They're 6th in their domestic league. They've won 7 and lost 7 of their 17 games so far, so they've been very inconsistent this season. And you expect Tottenham to easily dispose of them, given their superior pedigree in Europe, and they've got superior quality of players. But Spurs haven't exactly been flying in the Premier League. They've dropped down to, I think they're 8th in the Premier League, after looking like they might make a run for the title this season. And it all goes back to that thing about Jose Mourinho. His style of play is so defensive. It's not really getting the best out of his team, and you just wonder, could Wolfsburg maybe surprise them with that, like Antwerp did in the group stages when they took the game to Tottenham and deservedly won the game. So maybe that might give Wolfsburg a hope, but you expect Tottenham to get through from this tie, and I actually think they'll make a comfortable fist of it in Austria. I'm not really convinced by Wolfsburg, if I'm being honest, so I'm going for a Tottenham 2-0 win. And then another Premier League side, Leicester City, they are away to Czech league leaders Slavia Prague, who progressed quite well from their group along with Bayer Leverkusen, so there'll be tough opposition for the Foxes, even though Leicester are flying in the Premier League, third in their league, and had a great result at the weekend against Liverpool, but Slavia Prague are a tough proposition, particularly at their place. They won all 3 of their home games in the group stages, and as I said, are flying high in their domestic league at the top, so it won't be an easy first leg for Leicester City. And but I actually think that Leicester might get some sort of result in the Czech Republic, which will provide the platform for them to finish the job at home. So I actually think Leicester will get a result. I don't think they'll actually win, because I think Slavia Prague will do enough to make life difficult for them. So I'm actually going for a 2-2 draw between the two teams. And then in some of the other ties in the early kickoffs, Olympiacos face PSV. Olympiacos were disappointing in the Champions League group stage, losing 5 of their 6 games, and are quite fortunate to drop down into the Europa League, given how bad Marseille were in their group as well. So, and they've got a tough test against a PSV Eindhoven side who are second in the Eredivisie, even though they've not been great on their travels in recent weeks, drawing 2-2 with Ajax and losing 3-1 at Feyenoord. So they're not exactly playing like they're world beaters right now, but they should be favourites given the fact that they're in great form, even though Olympiacos are top of their domestic league. But that's always expected in their domestic league. They dominate Greece pretty much every single year. So, and they lost their first game at the weekend against Panathinaikos. So maybe that'll put them back a bit heading into this tie. And the fact that there are going to be no fans at their ground, which always makes for an intimidating prospect for the opposition, I actually think that PSV Eindhoven will get something from this one. So I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw in Greece. And then Young Boys host Bayer Leverkusen in Switzerland. Leverkusen have fallen off quite a bit domestically. They were unbeaten in their first 12 league games, and there was hope that they could win a first ever Bundesliga title, but that seems to have all gone to bed. There was a run where they lost 5 of 7 games to slip from top to down to 5th, and they conceded twice in the last few minutes to draw with second from bottom Mainz, so they're not really in great form. But they'll actually you expect them to beat Young Boys because the fact that the Swiss side, they're not exactly experienced at this stage of the competition. They did well actually getting through a group with Roma, but that was more to do with the fact that Cluj weren't really that great. So you just wonder who's actually going to get through from this tie. I still think Bayer Leverkusen will have enough, but up top they have really failed to score enough goals to win enough games in recent weeks, and their defence still has issues, as we saw at the weekend against Mainz. So I think maybe that Leverkusen were happy just to get away from Switzerland with a draw. So I think they'll do just that. I don't think they'll actually win because Young Boys are pretty good at home in Europe. So I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw in this one as well. And then AC Milan, who before the weekend were top of Serie A, they go to Belgrade to take on Red Star. Might have been an intimidating prospect if fans were allowed into that stadium, given it's a very hostile atmosphere, but given there's going to be no one in the stadium to support the home team, you really fancy Milan to take control of this time, pretty much sew it up before the second leg. They did suffer a surprise defeat the weekend, the Italian side, but you'd imagine that's just a blip, given they've recovered well from recent setbacks, such as the one against Atalanta, I remember a few weeks ago, so you expect them to make progress in this tie, and I think they'll do just enough to pretty much seal the tie in this first leg, so I'm going for a 2-0 AC Milan win in Serbia. Another one of the early kickoffs, Dinamo Kyiv face Club Brugge. Both teams are top of their domestic leagues, but Brugge are away first, given the fact that they picked up more points in the Champions League group stage than Kyiv. And I think Brugge will actually be good enough to get a result in this game, because Dynamo Kyiv haven't really been great in Europe in recent years. They only picked up 4 points in the group stage, and they were against the weakest team in the group in Ferencvaros. So you just wonder how they're going to fare against the Brugge side, who came agonisingly close to reaching the last 16 of the Champions League. So Brugge are the slight favourites for me in this tie, and I think they'll get some sort of result in Kiev, which should be enough for them to get through. So I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw as well in this one. And then Brugge host Roma in Portugal. Brugge are third in their domestic league above Benfica, but they're still a bit behind Sporting Lisbon in terms of trying to win a title. They were thrashed 4-0 by Leicester City in the group stage, which was not great by them. And you just wonder, will they learn from last season when they threw away a 2-0 lead to lose 4-2 on aggregate to Rangers, and against the Roma side, who did well to qualify from their group and are in the top 4 of their domestic league. You just wonder whether they'll have enough to get the better of the Italian side. But Roma have had their issues as well, particularly against the big teams. 3-0 loss to Lazio, a 2-0 away to Juventus, and 4-1 against Atalanta. So they haven't really exactly been on fire domestically, but I still think they'll get the better of Brugge over the two legs. They've got a lot of experience in their side with the likes of Edin Dzeko, Pedro, and some good young players like Borja Mayoral and Jordan Veretout, who Aston Villa fans will remember. So I think Roma will get the better of Brugge over the two legs, but I actually think that in this first leg, Brugge will actually win, because I think they're very good at home. So I'm actually going to go for a 2-1 Brugge victory. Another of the early kickoffs, Krasnodar host Dinamo Zagreb. Krasnodar dropped down from the Champions League, which they actually did well to get a Europa League place in, given they were in a very tough group. But the Russian league hasn't started yet, and you just wonder if they'll be lacking match sharpness and match fitness for this tie with the Croatian side, who were very good in the group stages. Comfortably finished ahead of Wolfsburg and CSK in Moscow and Feyenoord, I remember. So they'll be firm favourites to make progress in this tie, but Krasnodar will try and make it difficult in the first leg at home. Do I think Zagreb will have enough to get some sort of result? Yes. Do I think, and defensively they were very good in the group stages, only conceding 1 goal. So I actually think Zagreb will actually get the edge in this first leg, and I think the scoreline will be 1-0 to Dinamo Zagreb in Russia. And then moving down to the later kickoffs, there's a tasty looking tie between Lyon and Ajax in France. Both sides are top of their domestic league. Lyon got through a group with AC Milan and Celtic and are flying high domestically, as I said, as well as Ajax. both sides are in great form. Ajax have won I think they their past 5 or 6 games. Lyon before the weekend had won their past 6. So both sides are in good form, but Ajax have the edge over the French side, given they won home and away against them in the Champions League last season, group stage last season, and they've got a really good mix of youth and experience in their side. Ajax, with Dusan Tadic still there. Sebastian Haller, they signed from West Ham, but I heard he's been omitted from the Europa League squad due to a technical error or something, so that might set them back a bit for this tie, given the fact that Lille have been very strong defensively. I think they've kept clean sheets in their last 4 or 5 games, so they'll be tough to break down for the Dutch side. and I think it'll be a tight first leg in France, but I actually think that Lille might get the job done in this one. So I still think Ajax will actually get through. I said in my predictions following the draw that Lille would get through, but since then I think Ajax have really picked up domestically, so I'm actually going to say that Ajax will get through the 2 legs, but Lille will actually win the first leg for me, but not by much, so I'm going for a 1-0 Lille win. And then another of the intriguing ties is Benfica hosting Arsenal at the Stadio de Luz in Lisbon. At the time of the draw, Benfica I think they were top of their domestic league, whilst Arsenal were really struggling in the Premier League, but it seems to have turned the other way in recent weeks. Arsenal have really picked up form, but they're still in mid-table, having lost their past 2 games before the weekend victory against Leeds United. Benfica have really fallen off the pace in the Portuguese league. They're now outside of the Champions League positions, and you just wonder is there any hope for Arsenal that they could get a decent result in Lisbon? Arsenal still need to work on their defensive issues, given they're still vulnerable at the back, and that's where Benfica could really capitalise. But saying that, the Portuguese side aren't really scoring goals for fun. I think they only scored 1 goal at the weekend, and they've scored 1 and 0 goals in their last 3 or 4 games or something, so they're not exactly scoring goals for fun at the minute. And you think that Arsenal, if they can get a decent result in Lisbon, then that should set them up quite nicely to get the job done as I thought I was going to say the Emirates, but the tie's actually been moved to Athens, the second leg, so who knows. But I think for Arsenal, they'll be happy just to get away from Lisbon with a draw, or maybe a narrow defeat with an away goal or 2. So I'm actually going to go for a 1-1 draw in Lisbon between the 2 teams, which should suit Arsenal more than Benfica. And then Molde of Norway host Bundesliga side Hoffenheim. Hoffenheim haven't been great domestically. They're in the bottom half of the table, but they'll be favourites against the Molde side who haven't actually started their domestic league season yet. So they're another side who you may fear would suffer due to a lack of match sharpness. But they did well getting out of a group with Arsenal and Rapid Vienna, I remember, so they'll be trying to make life difficult for the Bundesliga side. But with Andre Kramaric and likes of Munas de Boer up top for the German side, you feel that they should have too much for Molde. So I'm actually going to go for a 3-1 Hoffenheim win in Norway. And then another tie in another of the latest kickoffs. Maccabi Tel Aviv host Shakhtar Donetsk. Shakhtar returned from their winter break with a goalless draw in their domestic league game, but you still think they should get the better of Maccabi Tel Aviv over the 2 legs, given they have the more experience in Europe and they have the better European pedigree than their Israeli opponents. So, and the fact they beat the 13 times champions of Europe home and away in the group stage, and you just wonder how they didn't get through despite those two results to the last 16 of the Champions League. But they should get the better of Maccabi Tel Aviv, if I'm being honest, and I think they'll pretty much get the job done in this first leg. So I'm going for a 2-0 Shakhtar Donetsk win in Israel. And then Scottish side Rangers, who are flying high domestically, still unbeaten in fact, way clear of their old firm rivals Celtic. They go to Belgium to face Royal Antwerp, who got out of the group with Tottenham and Lask. So they'll not be easy opponents for Rangers, especially what we saw with Antwerp when they faced Tottenham in the group stage. They were very good. Antwerp doing well domestically, they're third, so they'll make life as difficult, as tough as possible for Rangers. Although the Scottish side have already faced Belgian opposition already in this season's competition when they beat Standard Liège home and away in the group stage, so they'll be confident of getting the better of Antwerp. But I actually think that this tie will end in a draw. I know Rangers have been very good defensively, but in recent weeks they've not really scored as many goals as they normally do, so they'll be happy just to get a draw from this one. So draw from this one, and I think it'll be a score draw, which should be enough for Rangers to set themselves up to finish the job at Ibrox next week. So I'm going for a 1-1 draw for Rangers away in Antwerp. Serie A side Napoli are also in action on Thursday night when they make the trip to Spain to face Granada. Napoli won at the weekend against Juventus to ease the pressure on their under-fire manager Gennaro Gattuso, and they face a Granada side who did well to get out of their Europa League group with PSV Eindhoven and PAOK Salonika, I think it was. But they haven't really exactly been firing in La Liga. Earlier on in the season, it looked like they could make a push for the top four, but that seems to have been put to bed. They're now 8th in the league. And looks like, and it's really the onus is on Napoli to try and get the job done in this first leg and sew up the tie as early as possible. But Granada will make it difficult for them. They did trouble PSV in the group stages, so, and PSV are, I think, a similar level to Napoli, so it won't be an easy tie for the Italian side, but I think they'll get the job done in this first leg in Spain. So I'm going for a 2-1 Napoli win in Spain. And then the final tie of the round of 32 to look at is Salzburg against Villarreal. Salzburg dropped down from the Champions League. They lost 4 of their 6 games, but to finish third in their Europa League, their Champions League group, behind Atletico Madrid and Bayern Munich. They weren't really expected to get through from that group. It was a very difficult one for them. But the fact they only got 4 points was a bit of a disappointment for them, given their potential as a team. I always think of Red Bull Salzburg as a team that could cause trouble to the best, but fall short in trying to get over the line. So, and this is a tough test for them against the Villarreal side who cruised through their group, really. They were in a very favourable draw with 3 opponents who not really seasoned at this level of Europa League, so it was easy work for them, if I'm being honest. And they haven't been great domestically, Villarreal, actually. They drew a lot of games before losing at the weekend, so they're not exactly in the greatest of form, but they'll be favourites to get through against the Salzburg side, who are very vulnerable defensively. They've got good players up top, but are not very clinical enough, so I think Villarreal should get the better of the 2 legs, although I'm actually going to go for a draw in this first leg in Austria. So I'm going for a 2-2 draw between the two teams, given that both teams like to attack but not really like to defend. So yeah, that's it for my preview for this week's European ties. It's been a pleasure being back on this YouTube channel to get through it all with you, and once these ties are done, I'll have my preview on Friday to round up what's been happening across Europe this week. So hope you enjoyed this video as usual, and I look forward to seeing you all soon as always. I'm out of here.